Thank you.
I thank the representative of Sierra Leone for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank ASG Shansha for his briefing. We also welcome the distinguished Foreign Minister of Estonia, other ministers, and the EU High Representative to this meeting. President, prolonged and intense conflicts, no matter how localized, create a vortex of instability with spillover effects that invariably affect regional and global stability. And what we are witnessing around us today is a practical manifestation of this fundamental truth about conflicts. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine, now into its 4th year, has generated numerous challenges, both for the regional and international peace and stability. And Pakistan, alongside our fellow council members, has repeatedly drawn attention to the negative consequences of this conflict and the need to bring it to an end. We take note of Estonia's letter of 20th September addressed to this council informing about violations of its airspace. Pakistan is an ardent proponent and strong adherent to the UN Charter and its principles. Sovereignty and territorial integrity of all member states are cornerstone principles of the UN Charter, are sacrosanct and must be respected universally. Pakistan remains deeply perturbed by the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, especially its humanitarian consequences that have adversely impacted the lives of millions of people in the region. Cessation of hostilities and return to diplomacy remain the only path for achieving sustainable peace. In line with our clear and consistent position, Pakistan has always called upon the parties to demonstrate restraint, avoid escalation, and scrupulously adhere to the international humanitarian law. We firmly believe that only a meaningful dialogue, which addresses the security concerns of all sides, is anchored in the principles of UN Charter and international law, and respects the relevant multilateral agreements, can help secure peace, a peace that is both just and lasting. Pakistan stands ready to support all regional and international efforts that can pave the way for a peaceful resolution of the current conflict. President, I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome the new permanent representatives of the United States to the Council. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement. Before giving the floor to the United States, I'd like to welcome the new permanent representative of the United States, Ambassador Michael Waltz, to the Security Council. We look forward to working closely with you in the coming days. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and it's very good to be with you and this esteemed body for the first time. Thank you, ASG Yensha, for your briefing. And of course, I too welcome the participation of Estonia's foreign minister in this briefing as well. Colleagues, just 9 days ago, this council met to discuss Russia's violation of Poland's airspace with a large number of military drones. In that meeting, the United States urged Russia to end the war in Ukraine and stop actions that could risk it escalating into a broader conflict. Instead, on September 19th, Russia again violated the airspace of a NATO member when 3 armed military aircraft flew 10 nautical miles into Estonian airspace, coming within 15 miles of the Estonian parliament. And as we said 9 days ago, the United States stands by our NATO allies in the face of these airspace violations, and I want to take this first opportunity to repeat and to emphasize the United States and our allies will defend every inch of NATO territory. Russia must urgently stop such dangerous behavior. At a time when President Trump in the United States has been focused and spent an enormous amount of time and effort to end this horrific war between Russia and Ukraine, we expect Russia to seek ways to de-escalate, not risk expansion. This event, following on the heels of the Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace, creates the impression that Russia either wants to escalate and pull more countries into this conflict with Ukraine, or doesn't have full control of those who operate its fighter planes and drones. So either scenario is very disconcerting, given that Russia is obviously a nuclear power with global reach. And so I once again urge Russia as a permanent member of this council to uphold international peace and security, to respect the sovereignty of its neighbors, to cease violating their airspace, and I call on Russia to negotiate directly with Ukraine to end that war. I thank you, and I very much am honored and look forward to working with each of you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of the Republic of Korea. To begin, my gratitude goes to ASG Yencha for the statement. Colleagues, the Republic of Korea is seriously concerned by the most recent in a series of deeply alarming incidents, this time impacting the territorial integrity of Estonia. On Friday, we were dismayed by reports of fighter jets from the Russian Federation violating Estonian airspace and remaining there over the Gulf of Finland for a total of 12 minutes. We note that this incident led to some countries responding by scrambling their jets in yet another troubling event over European territory. This once again appears to represent a significant breach of the sovereignty of United Nations member state, which could further threaten European and international security and simultaneously erode diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine. Friday's incidents in the Estonian skies represent just the latest occurrence in a series of concerning actions, following the recently reported Russian drone breaches of Poland and Romania. Colleagues, at this Council's 12th September meeting, in response to the violation of Poland's territorial integrity, my delegation warned that this incident was a resounding wake-up call and could mark a dangerous turning point. One, where the war in Ukraine may no longer be able to be contained, instead spreading incrementally and insidiously further into Europe. Today, we reiterate our expanding concern over yet another seeming escalation. This incident suggests a troubling pattern that could proliferate and interconnect, raising the risk of grave miscalculation over even miscommunication. And it vividly illustrates the urgency of decisively ending this war. Colleagues, we remind once again the Security Council of Russia and the DPR case ongoing unlawful military cooperation, which violates multiple Security Council resolutions and directly threats peace and security in Europe and Asia. It must stop immediately. In conclusion, alongside the international community, the Republic of Korea continues to support diplomatic efforts to bring about lasting peace in this region. And I resume my functions as President of the Council. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Margus Tsahkna, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Estonia.
Your Excellencies, thank you, President. Please allow me to thank the Presidency for convening the Security Council meeting at such a short notice. And I also would like to thank ASG Jensa for his valuable briefing. Ladies and gentlemen, what brings us here today is alarming. On 19 September 2025, 3 armed Russian MiG-31 fighter jets deliberately entered Estonian airspace in violation of our territorial integrity. They remained in our skies for 12 minutes, penetrating up to 10 kilometers deep and covering nearly 100 kilometers inside our sovereign territory. These are the hard facts based on solid evidence, whatever Russia is claiming. And let me show you the screenshot from our most modern radar screenshot. So you can see here as well, the red line is a violation of Estonian territory and sovereignty. You can see it very clearly. This is a fact. This is not something else. So here you can say, you can also see the radar screenshot where Russia fighter jets entered, where they were, and how they went out. They were warned already before. There was a very clear communication on all different channels as well, visibly. And there was no response, and just Russian fighter jets, they continued the violation of Estonian and also NATO airspace for 12 minutes, 100 kilometers. And this is a lot. And these are the hard evidences for that. Also, there are pictures of these fighter jets, and it is very clear that these fighter jets, they carried as well missiles. All of them, they carried missiles, and they were combat-ready planes. And you can see from here as well, Russian representatives, that these are the photos which really were taken during this heavy violation of NATO and Estonian airspace. So what I want to say, that violation is crystal clear, and Russia is lying again, as it has been lied before several times. We remember the occupation of Georgia, 2008, 2014, Crimea, 2022, aggression against Ukraine started. So please don't lie again. Hard evidence is here. So it is a dangerous escalation. It was a 4th violation of Estonia's airspace by Russia this year alone. By this one was deeper, longer, with 3 armed aircraft simultaneously and just minutes flight time away from Tallinn, our capital. I want to recall that member states' sovereignty and territorial integrity on land, at sea, and in the air must be respected at all times. So this was yet another reckless and flagrant violation of the United Nations Charter and of international law by our neighbor. We are here today because this violation of our sovereignty and threat of use of force concerns not only Estonia, but the entire international community. The 19 September incursion was not an isolated act, but part of a broader pattern of Russian provocations against its neighbors, while the permanent member of the Security Council continues its full-scale war of aggression against Ukraine. On 9th of September, Russia presently violated Poland's borders by sending 19 drones into Poland's airspace. On 13th of September, a Russian attack drone flew for almost an hour over Romanian territory. Russian drones have been also found in Latvia and Lithuania, our neighboring countries. Russia's dangerous behavior cannot be tolerated. To do so would seriously undermine not only the United Nations Charter and international law, but would set very dangerous precedent, encouraging further aggression, fueling regional and global tensions, and ultimately endangering global peace and security. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 34 years since Estonia joined the United Nations, we were obliged to ask the Presidency to convene this meeting in the spirit of the preventive diplomacy and in order to stop immediately attempts at further escalation by Russia. We use this occasion to call again on the Russian Federation loud and clear to cease, without delay, its war of aggression against sovereign Ukraine and to abide by the obligations enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. We call on Russia to end all provocations and threats against its neighbors' sovereignty and territorial integrity. The international community must stand firm in demanding an end to these blatant breaches of the United Charter in order to prevent further escalation and to ensure international peace and security. Ladies and gentlemen, Estonia is convinced that all responsible members of the international community should always call out such outrageous actions by any member of the United Nations, and even more so by a permanent member of the Security Council, entrusted with a special responsibility to safeguard international peace and security. And yet, words are not enough. As Russia itself has become a real threat to global peace and security, we need to exercise collectively maximum pressure on Russia, forcing it to just and lasting peace in Ukraine and forcing it to abandon its criminal, neo-colonial and imperial ambitions. Together we can hold Russia accountable for its crime of aggression against Ukraine, for the war crimes and crimes against humanity it has committed since 2014, and for its ongoing violations of international treaties and agreements it has pledged to uphold. Impunity, appeasement and further concessions would only embolden Putin and would lead to new crimes. We can succeed only if acting decisively together in defense of the United Nations Charter and the international law. Finally, let me assure that the members of the Security Council and wider audience that Russia's threats and provocations are not going to weaken our resolve to support Ukraine in its defense against the Russian aggression. Just and lasting peace in Ukraine will strengthen the multilateral system based on international law, with the United Nations and its Charter at the core, as well as international peace and security across the globe. Thank you, President.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Tsahkna for the statement. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Kaja Kallas, High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission.
Thank you, Mr. President, Excellencies. The United Nations was founded on a set of shared values and principles, foremost the pursuit of peace and security. Although these values are being continuously tested and tried, the adherence to these values is still what brings us together in this room. There is one country present here in this room which is actively seeking to undermine the values and principles the nations of the United Nations have committed upholding. Last week, Russia once again violated international law and the sovereignty of an European country. For 12 minutes, 3 armed Russian fighter jets